In our previous videos, we've talked about adding fractions, and we've talked about multiplying fractions. So in this video, we want to start looking at how we're going to solve equations that involve fractions, either as coefficients or just in general as part of that equation. So if you look at example 1, we have m plus 4 equals 13 halves. And so the first thing I want to do, just using my rules for solving equations, I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides because I want to get m by itself. 4 minus 4 becomes 0. So I have m all by itself on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, I have 13 halves minus 4. Now, 4 is a fraction. We can write it as 4 over 1. And because this is subtraction, similar to addition, I need to have the denominators be the same, and they're not. Well, how can I get these denominators to be the same? Well, I can turn this denominator into 2 by multiplying the top and the bottom by 2. So I get 13 halves minus 8 halves. Now that I have the same denominator, I can continue to solve. 13 minus 8 is 5 halves. So m equals 5 halves. Looking at example 2, you'll notice similarly the same thing, except now we have 2 fractions. The first thing I want to do is still what I would normally do, is subtract each side by 4/5. Well, 4/5 minus 4/5 is 0, so I'm left with v on this side. And I've got 41/20 minus 4/5. Now, I don't have the same denominator, but I could if I multiplied this 5 by 4. So I would multiply the top and the bottom by 4. This would give me 41 over 20 minus 16 over 20, which, if I continue to solve out, would give me 25 over 20. Now, I'm not finished. We know that 25 and 20 have something in common. In fact, 25 is just 5 times 5, and 20 is 5 times 4. So you'll notice these 5s become 1, and I'm left with 5/4. Don't forget to reduce your fractions if you can. You won't always be able to. Let's talk about when we have fractional coefficients. To get rid of this negative 2/3 from both sides, I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal. And I'm going to show you why this works. When I have 2/3 and I multiply it by its reciprocal, negative 3/2, you'll notice that this is the same thing as writing negative 2 times a negative 3 over 3 times a 2. Now, negative times a negative is a positive. So this is a positive 6 over 6. And we know that any number over itself equals 1. So when I multiply this side by a negative 3/2, what I'm doing is making a 1x. Now, we don't always have to write this one out front. I'm just doing it so that you see we've multiplied by the reciprocal. So if I do that to this side, I've got to do it to the other side here. So because this is multiplication, I don't have to worry about my denominators. I can just multiply straight across. Negative 3 times a negative 3 is 9. 2 times 2 is 4. Our answer is 9/4. Go ahead and try both of these. Check your understandings. For the first one, you should have multiplied each side by 3/2. These cancel out and you're left with an x. And your final answer should be negative 3/2 for the first one. For the second